Warning! This show contains truth, sarcasm, and opinions that may offend the fragile, the fake, and the fact-free. If you're still waiting for your government check to clear while blaming capitalism for your problems, or if you think Hamas deserves a participation trophy, you might want to change the station now. We don't do censorship, we don't do narrative-approved talking points, and we definitely don't do woke bedtime stories. So grab your coffee, tighten your seatbelt, and prepare for a dose of red-blooded reality. Because this is Data and Dissonance, where logic still matters and feelings aren't facts.
3 stories. 1 chaotic world. Tonight, after months of bloodshed and failed diplomacy, Israel and Hamas finally agree to a fragile ceasefire. But is it peace, or just a pause before round 2? Back home, Washington's lights are dimmer than a Biden campaign rally. The government shutdown grinds into week 2 as Trump refuses to budge without real border reform and fiscal accountability. And above it all, while the politicians bicker and the world burns, the heavens put on a show. The Draconid Meteor Shower streaks across the night sky, reminding us that maybe the universe still runs better than Congress. This is Data and Dissonance, October 9th, 2025. And we're just getting started. All right, folks, buckle up. It's that time again. The caffeine's kicking in, the headlines are dumber than ever, and I've got the usual crew here to help me sort through this circus we call America. First up, Brian, the man who wakes up every morning ready to fight globalism, socialism, and probably his neighbor's Prius. He's the kind of guy who thinks the word compromise is just liberal code for "we lost again." Then we've got Rachel, our independent voice of reason, or as Brian calls her, the left lane with a turn signal on. She's the one who reminds us that not everything is a conspiracy, but she also keeps a bug-out bag just in case. Over in the digital shadows is Daniel, our resident conspiracy theorist who connects dots faster than the NSA tracks your phone. If there's a Black Ops deal or a secret banker behind a peace treaty, trust me, Daniel already has the corkboard ready. And rounding it out, Skylar, the Green Party progressive who thinks capitalism is the root of all evil, but somehow still uses Amazon Prime and Starbucks points. She's here to keep us honest, or at least organically sourced. And me? I'm Artie, your host, your voice of common sense, and the guy still wondering how we live in a world where politicians can shut down the country but can't shut up. Let's dive into the madness, starting with the so-called peace deal everyone's cheering about in the Middle East. All right, so after months of chaos, bombings, and global finger-pointing, we're told peace is finally on the table. Yeah, sure. And Epstein's Island was just an Airbnb. Israel and Hamas have agreed to a temporary ceasefire brokered by the US, Egypt, and Qatar. 3 countries who couldn't agree on lunch, but somehow think they can stop a holy war. The deal supposedly trades dozens of Israeli hostages for hundreds of Palestinian prisoners, and everyone's acting like this is a kumbaya moment. But let's be honest, this isn't peace, it's just halftime. So, Brian, I gotta start with you. Trump's team helped push this through, but is this a real diplomatic win, or just one of those look busy for the cameras moments?
You know, Artie, I'll give Trump credit. At least he got people in a room without having to drone strike half of them first. But let's not kid ourselves. You can't negotiate peace with a terrorist organization that hides rockets in daycares. This deal is like putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound and calling it progress. The media's spinning it like Trump just solved the Middle East, but I see it for what it is, a pause before the next round of rockets. The only thing Hamas understands is force, not feelings. And let's be real, they're going to take this ceasefire time to reload, restock, and rebuild tunnels faster than the US can count ballots in Detroit.
You're not wrong, brother. Hamas uses ceasefire the same way CNN uses breaking news. It just means we're not done lying yet. But Rachel, you've been the one around here trying to find the gray area between total annihilation and kumbaya. So how do you see it? Is this a step toward peace, or just another illusion to keep everyone distracted while the war machine keeps humming?
I'll be honest, Artie. I want to be optimistic. I really do. Every time I see families reuniting or hostages freed, it gives me hope that maybe humanity isn't completely broken. But at the same time, this deal feels like déjà vu. We've seen it over and over. Ceasefire, retaliation, outrage, repeat. It's like a toxic relationship that both sides refuse to walk away from. And I think the US is playing therapist again. Except this time, the therapist is armed and charging interest. If Trump's administration actually manages to turn this into something sustainable, I'll eat crow on live radio. But until then, I'm cautiously skeptical.
We'll get that crow air-fried and seasoned with Middle Eastern sand if that happens. But you're right. It feels like the world's worst déjà vu episode. Daniel, you're usually the guy behind the curtain on these things. Who's really pulling the strings here? Is this just optics, or are there deeper hands playing chess while we're all staring at the board?
Oh, there's always a deeper game, Artie. You don't get a ceasefire like this without back-channel deals. My money says there's something brewing between Mossad, Qatar's intelligence network, and a few familiar, non-government investors. Watch the money trail. That's where the truth always hides. Notice how Iran suddenly went quiet this week. They didn't disappear. They're repositioning. And let's not forget, every time these temporary truces happen, new weapons shipments mysteriously appear in Gaza days later. It's not peace, it's a logistical pause. Think of it like the halftime show before the real war starts again. Only instead of Rihanna, it's rockets.
So basically the Middle East equivalent of the Super Bowl, minus the beer commercials and with way more shrapnel. Skylar, you've been pretty vocal about humanitarian aid and civilian casualties. What's your take? Are we seeing a legitimate chance to stop the bloodshed, or just a PR stunt with better lighting?
I'll admit I'm relieved anytime bombs stop falling, even temporarily. But I don't buy into the photo op diplomacy either. You can't fix decades of occupation, poverty, and retaliation with one handshake and a few staged smiles. The Palestinian people deserve safety, yes, but Hamas doesn't represent all of them, and Israel's government needs to realize that. Both sides have blood on their hands, and until leadership changes, this is just another headline to make people feel like progress is happening while the same systems of power keep profiting off chaos. And if Trump's foreign policy team really had a hand in this, I'll give them credit, but I'll be watching closely to see who profits next.
There it is. The rare moment where Skylar and Brian might almost agree that somebody's full of it, they just can't agree on who. Look, I'll say this. It's good to see hostages home. It's good to see aid trucks moving, and it's great to see world leaders pretending to get along. But this isn't peace, folks. This is the same script with a new narrator. The ink isn't dry, the rockets aren't gone, and the propaganda machine is just warming up. The Middle East doesn't run on oil anymore. It runs on outrage. All right, take a breath, refill that coffee, and get ready to turn our gaze back home. Because while the world's pretending to heal, our own government can't even afford the Band-Aids. All right, let's bring it back home. And by home, I mean the smoldering dumpster fire known as Washington, D.C. We're now knee-deep into week 2 of the federal shutdown, and somehow the world hasn't ended. Unless you count the unpaid interns crying outside the Smithsonian. Nearly 1 million federal employees are either furloughed or working without pay, and the politicians responsible are still collecting their checks, smiling for cameras, and tweeting about bipartisanship. Trump's drawn his line in the sand. No deal without border reform, spending cuts, and what he called an end to the DC addiction to fake money and fake promises. Democrats, of course, responded with all the maturity we've come to expect, by calling him a dictator while simultaneously asking for more time off. So, Brian, let's start with you. Is this Trump being strong or stubborn?
Both. And I mean that as a compliment. Trump's doing what every other so-called leader has been too scared to do. Actually say no to the swamp. We've been running trillion-dollar deficits for decades, and every time someone tries to slow the spending, the media screams about heartless Republicans. Meanwhile, they've got bureaucrats making 6 figures to count gender pronouns in military paperwork. I say keep it shut down until the deep state feels it. You want border security? You want fiscal sanity? Then stop funding the circus. Half those agencies don't even know what they do anymore. Let them sweat. Let them remember who's boss.
Spoken like a man who'd burned down the IRS building just to roast marshmallows over it. But you make a point. Most of these essential agencies go quiet and no one even notices. Rachel, I know you're our voice of reason, so tell me, at what point does standing your ground become hurting your own citizens? Because let's be honest, some of these folks are just trying to keep their lights on and the government's playing tug of war with their paychecks.
It's a valid concern, Artie. I support fiscal responsibility, I do, but the political theater around it always hurts the wrong people first. The middle-class federal workers, small business contractors, the families relying on paychecks from agencies like DHS or FAA, they're the ones stuck in limbo. Meanwhile, the political elites are playing poker with tax dollars they'll never personally miss. I think Trump's demands make sense. Border reform and spending control should be priorities. But this endless brinkmanship isn't leadership. It's hostage-taking with a flag on top. Both sides need to realize that compromise isn't a four-letter word.
See, I get that. But every time someone says compromise, it ends with conservatives giving ground and Democrats getting another $90 billion for the children. Daniel, I know you're watching the backroom deals. Who's really winning here? Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like the same DC game. Fight in public, cash out in private, and blame the taxpayers when the lights go out.
Oh, it's always the same game, Artie. Look deeper. The shutdown isn't about money, it's about leverage. The people in power know exactly what they're doing. You've got lobbyists and contractors who thrive during chaos. Every shutdown magically shifts contracts, creates loopholes, and allows insider money to move unnoticed. While CNN is showing crying park rangers, defense subcontractors are quietly cashing advance payments. I'll bet by next week we see a sudden, temporary emergency bill that funnels billions into the same pockets that started this mess. The shutdown isn't a standstill, it's a shakedown.
So what you're saying is, even when the government stops working, the corruption doesn't clock out. That sounds about right. Skylar, I can see you shaking your head already. Go ahead, hit us with your eat the rich moment. How do you see this circus from your side of the fence?
Look, Artie, I'll be honest, I think both parties are a disaster. The system's broken and the shutdown is just proof of it. You've got billionaires and corporations with record profits, while the average worker, government or not, is one missed paycheck away from collapse. I'm not mad at Trump for drawing a line. I'm mad that the line keeps cutting through the middle class. We've got people debating billions for foreign aid while veterans are sleeping under bridges in this country. Fix that first. I say shut it down until they remember who they actually work for. The people, not the donors.
Finally, a progressive quote I can actually clap for. Somebody mark the calendar. Look, here's the truth. Every shutdown proves the same thing. Government doesn't make America run. We do. It's the truckers, nurses, small business owners, and factory workers who keep this country alive. Politicians just take the credit when things work and blame the other side when they don't. This shutdown's gonna end the same way they all do. A midnight deal, a bunch of self-congratulating tweets, and no accountability for the money burned. But hey, at least the lights are still on at the IRS building, right? Because God forbid they ever shut that one down. All right, up next, we'll look up instead of down. Because while DC burns, the night sky's giving us something actually worth watching. You know, after weeks of war headlines and government shutdown chaos, it's nice to finally talk about something literally out of this world. The Draconid Meteor Shower is peaking tonight, and for once, the only fireballs falling from the sky aren't coming from Gaza. NASA says if you're in the northern US and away from city lights, you might catch 100 meteors an hour streaking across the sky. And if you squint hard enough, you might even see the ghost of fiscal responsibility fly by. Between the shutdown and the Middle East, maybe we all just need to look up for a minute. Brian, I'm guessing you'll be out there with a beer in one hand and an American flag in the other. What's your take on the cosmic show?
Damn right, Artie. I'll be out there with my lawn chair, a cooler, and maybe a few buddies from the VFW. The Draconids are one of those reminders that no matter how screwed up politicians make this planet, the universe still knows how to put on a show for free. Every shooting star is like God saying, "Relax, I'm still in charge." Plus, I think it's poetic. While DC burns taxpayer money, the heavens are literally dropping light shows on us for nothing. Kind of puts things in perspective. And if one of those meteors happens to land on the IRS building, well, let's just say I won't be calling NASA to complain.
There it is. Wish upon a star, hope it hits the bureaucracy. Rachel, you're the practical one here. You always manage to find the beauty and the science in everything while Brian's hoping for cosmic retribution. What do these moments mean to you? Beyond the science, I mean?
Honestly, Artie, I think nights like this remind people that we're small, and that's a good thing. We spend so much time fighting over politics, religion, and whose reality is more correct, but then you look up at a sky full of fire and it humbles you. The Draconids aren't just debris, they're ancient remnants of something far bigger than us, burning bright and gone in seconds. Maybe that's a metaphor for our chaos. It burns hot, makes a scene, and disappears. I'll be watching tonight, not for wishes, but just to remember that there's still wonder left in the world.
Spoken like someone who reads NASA updates with a side of poetry. Daniel, I know you're going to ruin that beauty with something about satellites or secret tech. So go ahead, hit us with your tinfoil truth.
Oh, you know me too well. Look, the Draconids are cool, but don't think for a second the government isn't paying attention. Every year during these showers, the sky lights up and radar interference spikes. And guess who uses that window to test classified objects? Yeah, the same folks who said UFOs don't exist until they needed a distraction. I'm not saying every light is a drone, but I'm also not saying NASA didn't plan Artemis updates to coincide with a celestial cover event. It's all about timing, my friend. While we're looking up, they're launching things we're not supposed to see.
So while Rachel's having a spiritual moment, Daniel's checking his Geiger counter. God bless America. All right, Skylar, last word before we close this out. You've got that eco-warrior streak. Are you looking up tonight or tweeting about carbon emissions from space dust?
Actually, Artie, I'll be looking up. Because even with everything falling apart down here, the universe doesn't stop reminding us how small our egos are. I love events like this. They get people outside, off their phones, actually sharing a human moment for once. And I don't care who you vote for. When you see a streak of light race across the sky, you feel connected to something bigger than all our nonsense. It's the one show left that doesn't need politics or algorithms. Just clear skies, quiet minds, and maybe a cup of coffee that isn't made in Washington.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So while the world argues about borders, budgets, and who's to blame, maybe tonight's the perfect reminder that the real world doesn't revolve around DC. It spins around the sun. Step outside, look up, and let the universe remind you that we're not meant to live angry. We're meant to live awake. Up next, we'll hit final thoughts, tie all this together, and close out the night the data and dissonance way. You know, it's funny. Nights like this remind me how insane this world's gotten. We've got politicians shutting down the government over border bills they'll never read, foreign leaders shaking hands over ceasefires they'll never honor, and meanwhile, the sky's putting on a better show than Congress could ever dream of. You almost have to laugh. Humanity's fighting over crumbs while the universe is out there throwing fireworks for free. But that's what this show's always been about. Not just calling out the lies, but finding the meaning buried under the madness. The headlines are chaos, but the truth? The truth is usually somewhere in between the talking points and the stars. So as we wrap up tonight, I want to hear where everyone lands after a week like this. Politically, spiritually, or maybe just plain emotionally. What's the takeaway when the world's on edge and the night sky's telling us to chill out? Brian, I'm going to start with you. What's your final thought tonight, brother?
You know, Artie, nights like this remind me why I still believe in this country, even when it's being run by clowns. We've got bureaucrats bickering while real Americans, the ones who get up before sunrise, bust their backs, pay their taxes, and raise their kids right, they're the ones holding the line. This shutdown, it's noise. This ceasefire, it's temporary. But the heartbeat of America, that doesn't stop. The same way those meteors blaze across the sky, burning bright and gone in seconds. That's how I see freedom. Fragile, fleeting, and worth fighting for every damn time. So yeah, I'll be out there tonight, coffee in hand, flag on my porch, watching the heavens and thanking God that I was born in a country that still gives me the right to call out the idiots ruining it.
Hell of a speech, brother. Patriotic and pissed off just how we like it. Rachel, you always balance the fire with a little reason. What's your takeaway from all this chaos tonight?
You know, Artie, sometimes I think we get addicted to outrage. Every day it's another fight, another headline, another end-of-the-world moment. But when you step back, when you breathe and look up at something like that meteor shower, it hits you. The world isn't ending, it's just evolving. And maybe, just maybe, we need to stop screaming long enough to listen, to each other, to reason, to something bigger than ourselves. I don't agree with everything Trump does, and I don't think peace in the Middle East comes from hashtags and press conferences. But I do believe people are capable of change, if they can shut up long enough to see their own reflection. Tonight, I'll take that reminder, that the light we're looking for doesn't come from politicians, it comes from us.
Well said, Rachel. Always finding a way to make my cynicism sound poetic. Daniel, what about you, man? What's your final thought after everything we've dug through tonight?
You know, I spend a lot of time connecting the dots, exposing the manipulation, calling out the power games, but sometimes I have to remind myself, awareness without hope is just paranoia. Yeah, the ceasefire has strings attached. The shutdown's just another money grab. And half the stars we see might be surveillance satellites. But the fact that people are still questioning, that they're still looking, that's what gives me hope. The system wants blind obedience. What we're doing here, what listeners do when they question, research, think critically, that's rebellion. And in an era where ignorance is encouraged, truth-seeking is the purest form of patriotism. So yeah, I'll still watch the sky tonight. But not because I'm paranoid, because I still believe truth shines even when the world's gone dark.
Damn, that's solid, man. Truth with a side of tinfoil. My favorite flavor. All right, Skylar, bring us home before I wrap this circus up. What's your final thought tonight?
You know, Artie, it's easy to get jaded when the news feels like an endless loop of bad decisions made by people who'll never face the fallout. But when I think about that meteor shower, I think about how every streak of light started as something small, drifting, and insignificant until the right moment when it blazed across the sky and changed everything. That's what we need right now. People willing to be sparks in the dark, whether it's calling for justice, helping a neighbor, or just choosing kindness instead of division. That's how change really happens. I may not agree with everything everyone here says, but I respect that we're still talking, that we're still showing up, because silence is what kills democracy, not disagreement.
And that right there, folks, is why this show exists. We may argue, roast each other, or drive each other insane, but we all want the same thing. A country that remembers who it is. The government can shut down. The wars can rage. The headlines can spin. But the American spirit doesn't clock out. It doesn't take furloughs. It doesn't need permission to keep fighting. Tonight, while meteors streak across the sky and the world keeps spinning, remember that your voice still matters. Your faith still matters. And no matter how dark it gets, truth always finds a way through, even if it burns for only a moment. So keep your coffee strong, your mind sharp, and your heart grounded in something real. Until next time, this is Data and Dissonance, where we don't follow the narrative. We write our own. Remember to speak truth, stir thought. Tonight's episode of Data and Dissonance was brought to you by the Caleb Rourke Thriller Series. The Covenant Protocol and the Prophet Directive are out now, with Black Echo rising on deck. If you love political intrigue, deep state conspiracies, and that gritty, what if it's true kind of storytelling, these books are for you. They're not just fiction. They're a mirror of the madness we live in. Available now on Amazon, Apple Books, and everywhere good stories still dare to speak truth. And don't forget, you can fuel your freedom with our Data and Dissonance coffee blends. High Lakes Light Roast, Rock Creek Medium Roast, and the fan-favorite Bitterroot Dark Roast. Roasted right here in the USA for patriots who like their mornings bold and their government small. While you're there, grab the gear. Gen X shirts, mugs, bumper stickers, tote bags, trucker hats, hoodies, all the stuff that'll make your liberal coworkers quietly seethe when you walk in Monday morning. Every purchase keeps this show alive and helps us keep fighting the digital war for truth. Check it all out at the Data and Dissonance store, where patriotism meets caffeine and sarcasm.